Good morning, all. I know everyone said this, but it really is great to be here live and in person, and I'm sure everybody's going to say that today. And thanks Paul and Alan and TechWorks and AESIN for bringing us all together today. It's really, really good to be here. I'd like to start with a few big numbers to get our discussion going this morning. According to the International Energy Agency, globally the world emits about 34 billion tons of carbon dioxide from fuel use. In the next 29 years, just 29 short years, we have the mammoth task of getting that down to zero, and Ven teed that up for me very nicely, if we want to avoid overheating our planet. The transport sector is responsible for over 20% of this, and cars and vans pushing out about 3/4 of that in terms of their on-the-road emissions, and then there's more from the supply chains and the production of those vehicles. Pre-pandemic in 2019, the world global sales volume for cars and vans and motor vehicles was 93 million units, and only 2 million of those were plug-in EVs. So we have a long way to go. Now, these images are quite iconic for many of us working in this low-carbon automotive space. I'm sure some of you will have seen them before. Fifth Avenue, New York in 1903, and then a few years later, utterly transformed from the horse and cart to the automobile. A great metaphor for rapid progress and the adoption of new technology. It doesn't tell the full story, though, does it? Here's an additional image. This one of Nashville, Indiana in this case, a number of years on. The fact that some of the wealthiest folks in the world, hanging out in the wealthiest streets of Manhattan, had access to the newfangled motor car is perhaps not a great surprise. The additional utility offered by the car was a real motivator for those that could afford to make that switch. So what will it take to get mass adoption of zero-emission vehicles in the coming years, and what impact are those changes likely to have on the automotive industries and our supply chains? If we are to get 90 million consumers a year all around the globe buying electric vehicles, I think we need to address three fundamental challenges. The availability of new cars, the product technology, and the supply chains that feed the car producers. These will be much more motivated to invest if there is a real market pull. And this means that consumers need to get the feeling of confidence that purchasing an EV is going to be the right choice for them. And for that to happen, we also need the infrastructure that needs to be in place and working to enable people to charge up and operate their vehicles in a way that will give them that confidence to buy those vehicles. Of course, these three elements are all deeply related in a chicken and egg kind of fashion, so it's really encouraging to see some impressive movement forwards on all of these fronts in the past years. Now, I want to focus now on vehicle technology and supply chain. That's my piece of this puzzle. It's come to my attention that there are people around who already take the view that this EV thing is all solved, it's all done. They might be of the view that Tesla solved this a few years ago, and now the others are just about starting to catch up. And other commentators make claims about the time horizon for the total cost of ownership, or TCO parity, and purchase price parity with internal combustion engine vehicles. Some suggest that TCO parity is already here and purchase price parity just around the corner. However, the reality here is a little inconvenient. The cost of batteries remains the single biggest factor, and these batteries are fundamental to the supply-side economics of these EVs. It is fair to say that some premium vehicles with fashionable body styles may be able to just about break even for their manufacturers today and be affordable for those particular consumers. But there are many applications where the margins and profitability remains elusive, and prices remain too high at present for mass adoption. In some respects, of course, you might say that's okay, because as volumes grow and the world gets better at making these products, the costs will drop and the performance will improve. It's always been that way. Some consumers, in particular use cases, may be able to achieve TCO, total cost advantage, with EVs today. But the reality is we are a long way from cost parity for many people on TCO and for many users, let alone the purchase price, from a purchase price perspective. But we do have to get there for EVs to be truly accessible for all. On the right side of this slide is a picture I took of my battery electric vehicle dashboard as I rolled into a charge point with a completely flat battery. I'd already charged up twice that day, and a third charge point had been out of service. That meant I had to complete my journey with quite some risk. No wipers, no radio, no fan, no aircon. At one point, and I probably shouldn't say this with the Highways Agency in the room, but I was drafting a truck to try and save energy on the motorway. If I'd borrowed my wife's diesel that day, I'd have completed my visits in less time. Of course, without the stress of not knowing whether I was going to make it on time, and with all the normal creature comforts we expect when we're traveling around in our cars. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm still a great believer and a great fan in BEVs, but this just illustrates that we have some work to do on the utility of these vehicles if we are to get consumers on board and help them make the switch possible for everybody by 2035. So to get the cost down, get the utility up, we need to double down on innovation. Innovation in batteries, e-machines, inverters, controllers, platform solutions, lightweighting, anything that will improve efficiency, the charging times and the robustness of EVs to all climatic conditions. This will all contribute to greater utility and lower cost. Now, this slide shows the UK automotive industry potential over the next 10 to 15 years. What we did here was we looked at all the vehicle production OEMs in the UK and production plants, looked at the public announcements they had made by the OEMs, backed up with a little bit of insider knowledge, I have to say, and we have assumed some modest growth from a couple of the established players, and there could be some, again, modest volumes from new entrants. So very much pragmatic rather than stretch. We were delighted, and I have to say a little bit surprised when we pulled this graph together. Our industry can certainly grow back to the levels that we were at a couple of years pre-COVID. But look at how fast that switch from ICE, that dark blue band there, is the switch to BEVs. And look at how fast that switch can go if we put the right conditions in place. The message here is the UK can really take a leadership position in this global transition, but now, more than ever, is the time for action. So opportunity knocks with the innovation machine thrashing away at full blast. The great news is that there will be plenty of opportunity from this switch. By 2025, the APC estimates around £24 billion of opportunity in these new supply chains. A big slice of that, as you can see here, is from power electronics, for inverters, chargers, and the electronics related to various automotive systems and controls. The UK's innovation capability, particularly in the field of wide bandgap materials, is a real game changer here, provided that we are prepared to grasp the nettle. Of course, for all this to come together, for the UK industry to reap the benefits from the transition, the conditions have to be right to enable the innovation and the investment growth at the OEMs and the suppliers. The work we've done over the past 10 years with impressive leadership from the Automotive Council, industry, government working together has developed our comprehensive ecosystem, and we just heard from Ven, who has a big part to play in this. The UK government has provided long-term support and has made this whole subject a priority, which is really important. UKRI's ADP programme and the work of my organisation, the APC, has provided a route for automotive low-carbon innovation through into production readiness. the industrial strategy challenges, Venn's DER and Faraday on batteries, provide deep focus on the technologies going across the sectors, and the recently added Automotive Transformation Fund provides de-risking for capital projects to grow that supply chain right now at scale and at pace. Fundamentally, we think this model is pretty good, and we have requested again via the Auto Council that the government continues to support these agencies in its spending review that's in progress right now. Naturally, there will be some adjustment in scope or emphasis to reflect the latest market opportunities or to plug gaps that have existed or recently appeared. The fact that our aims within this ecosystem to deliver carbon-free motoring on a path to net zero and build a green industry in the process are totally aligned with the government's Build Back Better, levelling up, and its 10-point plan for decarbonisation. This is not lost on anyone, and while nobody can be assured of anything while the spending review process is still live, I feel we have made a very strong case, and it has been very well received. Now, others have talked about CAM. I wanted to ensure that whilst I focus my discussion this morning on EVs, at APC, we are closely related to Zenzik. We're the hosts for Zenzik, so I wanted to spend a minute on CAM as well. I know that others are highly invested in this area. The Auto Council has thrown its support for more funding in this space as well, while the route to zero emission light vehicles are on a very clear trajectory now. People don't always see CAM in the same, connected autonomous mobility in the same light. Perhaps the hype a couple of years ago with bold predictions of robo-taxis around every corner has dissipated a bit, but our case is very clear. Connectivity and increasing level of driver aids are with us today. Their complexity, the technology and the impact on the transport sector, and most of the businesses in it and supplying it will continue to increase rapidly. We had the courage in the UK to back the low carbon ticket when people were still saying fossil fuel powered vehicles were the way forward. That backing 10 years ago, that's helped us to have the entitlement to play hard in that zero emission sector today. So let's use that model again to develop technologies and early deployment in this connected autonomous mobility technology and grow the UK capability knowledge towards more R&D, a greater supply chain, and all the societal benefits that this technology can bring. Again, together with Connected Autonomous Centre for Connected Autonomous Vehicles and Zenzik, we've made a strong case through the Auto Council, and we'll continue to push that with the decision makers. So, just back to my low carbon stuff to finish off and summarize. Here's the 4 clear messages we've given to, well, it's not so clear because something's gone wrong with the text there, but anyway. We want to transition the UK automotive manufacturing to zero emission vehicles. That's our vision. We need a program that helps OEMs accelerate the change to EV platforms built in our UK assembly plants. Nissan's recent announcement for Sunderland, Stellantis in Ellesmere Port show that we are really building the momentum now. We have to continue that and get the OEM platforms switched right at the top of that supply chain. We need to build the new supply chain at scale and pace. We know that building share in a growing market is much less difficult than in one that has already reached stagnation. The opportunity is now to build those supply chains in batteries, e-machines, inverters, fuel cells, and the associated systems around them. Innovation and R&D is absolutely fundamental. It's critical. We need to accelerate development of the technology to reduce the costs and improve the user experience to make it accessible for all. And finally, we have to do a better job of getting to true net zero across the whole supply chain. Zero at the tailpipe is a really great start, but churning out EVs that are full of tons of embedded carbon is not going to be a sustainable solution. So that's me. Thanks very much for listening. Happy to take any questions.